Grades will not define your success. We're gonna step on a lot of toes today, but we're just gonna choose straight and say how it is. We made 1 million in our second year in practice. We're trying to help as many chiropractors and future chiropractors do the same to help as many people as possible. I don't run any ads, so if you enjoy the content, please subscribe and share with your colleagues and future colleagues to get on the path to victory. Grades, unfortunately, are not going to let you know if you're going to be a good chiropractor or a bad chiropractor. Me personally, I've never been a good student. From elementary school, middle school, high school, college, I was never a good student. I was a B and C, barely passing classes. I was always having fun. Teachers were pretty annoyed at me. Most of the time now, I see my teachers from high school in Facebook and they're pretty surprised of what I'm doing nowadays. I could see it on the reaction and on the comments that they say, but that's a simple example that school is not going to define your success. I was in my lowest point of my life before going to chiropractic school. We had a big hurricane called Maria 2017 came to Puerto Rico. I was about to go to my fourth year in college, and the hurricane destroyed the island. And a week after that, I moved with my brother to Florida, and he said, dude, you need to do something. I'm not going to maintain you. I just move you for you to have a better life and change your lifestyle. I was not hanging out with good people. I had terrible habits. I was just doing terrible stuff. Not good. And I moved there and I'm like, oh crap, I don't know English. I don't know what I'm doing here by myself, getting out of my comfort zone. Well, let's do it. I started working on a hotel as a maintenance guy. I applied for housekeeper and the guy told me, hey, you're going to be the maintenance guy. I'm like, what is that? He explained me everything. I'm like, okay, I'm Hispanic, but I don't know anything about handyman. I said a couple episodes ago, I'm like pointless on that aspect. But I started working and I started learning the language slowly, a lot of mistakes still. But I was on my lowest points of my life. So I started applying to chiropractic school. I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor. And I remember I got accepted in two schools. And I told my other maintenance guy, dude, I just got accepted in chiropractic school. And I was like freaking excited. And he's like, all right, let's go fix this. I'm like, what an asshole, dude. Like, you're not even happy. That's why I say I need to get out of here. So going forward, started school. I was in the lowest point of my life. And for me, it was all or nothing. I didn't have a bachelor, student loans. So I need to pass school. It doesn't matter what I do, whatever it takes, I need to graduate. And that's when I met you, and you know I didn't know any English at all. We still have the text messages and we laugh about it, but you taught me a lot about it. But that's a simple example that school doesn't define your success. I started getting motivated. I had great habits. I remember to the point that you didn't study with me because I was studying like for 12 hours, but it's because I didn't know what I was doing. It's not that I was retaining, it's just I didn't know what I was doing. So can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on school doesn't define your success?
Yeah, absolutely. I was totally opposite. He would study 12 hours. I would study like an hour. School just always came really easy to me. But keep in mind you were doing it in your second language and not your first language. So you had to work twice as hard, almost maybe three times as hard as a regular person who was just going to chiropractic school. So I commend you for that. I think what you said there, you were all in. It was all or nothing for you. If you didn't pass your classes, you didn't really have a fallback plan. So you didn't really have the option to fail. And I think that really motivated you and it inspired your habits to get stronger. And so I think you became a person that you always wanted to be, you always aspired to be, because where you were at, you were kind of stuck at your point in life and you knew that this was going to be your way out. And then look at you now. We definitely haven't made it by any means.
Hmm.
And you're definitely further along than where you
Yeah. And with this, I'm going to second that and say you gave me great habits. And that is point number one. If you're a student and you're taking notes, it's a good point right now. Point number one is creating habits. Because I remember you were going to the gym every morning at 5 a.m. And I never hit the gym before going to chiropractic school, but I started doing it because it was to spend more time together because I know in the evening I was going to be studying and you were not going to be part of that. So I started hitting the gym to the point that I went to a different gym because I enjoyed it and I got motivated as well. But I started creating my habits of waking up at 4 a.m. So that is point number one. If you're a student, you should create your habits. It's not just waking up at 4 a.m. or at 5. You have to set your own routine. And depending on your habits, is what is going to define your success. Even when we were on vacation, we were still waking up at 4:30 a.m. I remember my family was making fun of us, but it's just our habits, it's our routine.
Mhm. Absolutely, yeah, and that's part of, like, that work smarter, not harder concept of, like, I don't need to study for 12 hours, but what can I do with those 12 hours instead of study that's still gonna get me closer to my end goal? And so I think that's, like, a whole different topic on time management, but along the same lines of, like, grades don't define your success, we also were in a work-study program, and I remember you being really nervous about that because we would have, like, an hour or 2 between classes, and we worked in the cadaver lab, and you said, "Oh, I could really use this hour to study it for my next test or for my next class and like get ahead and everything." But working in the cadaver lab actually allowed us to study and allowed us to learn about the body, learn about the anatomy. Do you want to speak on the cadaver lab at all and how that kind of helped you to get, ahead in classes?
No, yeah, and that was point number two as well. Work study was a great advantage that we had, and thankfully we did it on the first quarters on the cadaver lab, and we used that as a work, but we were studying as well, taking advantage that we were already with the cadaver, studying every muscle, every nerve. So we were getting ahead. That way, when people were coming to study, the lab gets crowded. We already leaving because we already work, we study. Now it's time to leave. Our second job there was on the library, so that was kind of pretty easy, just sitting on the library studying while we were working. And the third point that I have is time management. As students, we wasted a lot of time probably scrolling in social media and things like that. But I remember I used to sit down a lot with my buddy, Dr. Nick Mueller, shout out to him in Michigan. And we used to write our plans of our future and how is our office going to look. And I remember when he told me, biochem is not going to define our success because him and I struggled a lot in that class. And he was like, this is not going to define our success. Let's just pass it with a C and you're going to see we're going to be successful. And now, I was talking with him this past weekend. He finished a great mastermind, and I see his success, and it's like, wow, it's pretty awesome how in school we were barely passing, and now we're way ahead of the time. And that comes as well, time management. Whenever I text a student or a chiropractor, I wake up at 4 a.m. When I text them at 5 a.m. and they answer me back, I know they have the things together, and I know they're go-getters. Right now, I just received a text message from a different office that we have from one of the doctors. He texted me and the associate didn't respond until 6:40, and he's supposed to be in the office at 7. So we're gonna have to chat about that because if you don't have your things together, you don't have your habits, you're not gonna have control of the office.
People like Nick Mueller too, like he's just a great person. He's a hard worker. Those are the people that you want to surround yourself with. So I believe collaboration can really elevate you to that next level. When you surround yourself with great people, you kind of by osmosis get great as well. That greatness is instilled in you. You start to pick up the habits of great people around you. And so I really am a strong proponent of collaboration. When you were struggling to study, when your grades maybe weren't great, you would go and study with like a huge group of people who were super, super smart.
Hmm.
It always impressed me how some of their brains worked and just the way they were able to kind of put concepts together. These are the kinds of people you want to study with, right? Because you're like, okay, they help me actually get the material. And then when I take a test, I know it because I've studied with these people. And that can really roll over into business with collaboration. You want to surround yourself with people who are on the same mission as you or who can kind of help you get there. And so it's not like about creating yourself and being a lonely island and, oh, I can do this all by myself. I'm a lone wolf. You have to surround yourself with people who will get you there. It really does take a village. So there's an amazing book that I would recommend. It's called Who, Not How. The whole principle is who can you find that will get you to your end goal or that will help you with your vision, and not just about how you can do it, but who can you find to help you with that how. So I really love that. Going back to grades and school for a bit, we all know that one student who had like killer grades at like 4.0 GPA, and they were super, super smart. They didn't even worry about tests that they were taking. But when it came to practicals, they would be super nervous. They didn't know where to put their hands or how to adjust. When we got to clinic, they were super scared about adjusting because they hadn't practiced their technique. They had only really studied for the, the whole 3 years that we were there. Can you talk on that at all about just like, how grades really don't define your success, but also how you really need to put the time in for mastering your craft? Why we were actually in school was to be a great adjuster.
No, yeah, that's a great point. Usually, at least when we were in school, the people that had the best grades, they were awkward people. They didn't know how to talk with the patient when we got to clinic. They didn't know how to adjust, so they struggled a lot on the clinic. They did amazing in school, though. Don't get me wrong. Like all A's, they cruised school, but when they got to clinic, it was way harder and it was a challenge. So from clinic, you're gonna go and see your own patients when you associate or you open your own office. So I think that's why we go to school. We still need to pass the boards. We still need to pass every class. That way we don't stay behind. I'm not saying never study. I'm gonna recommend you study 100%, go through school, play the game. It's a game, it's a system. Just follow that, play the game. Once you're done with school, it's a different world. But while you're playing that game, focus on yourself. How can you interact better with a patient? How can you find a mentor or coach while you're in school already? That way your life is easier once you graduate. Set a plan, like business plan. Whatever you think you're going to do, don't wait until the last minute, last 6 months. You could start doing that since your first year already, kind of like playing the behind the scenes while studying as well.
One of those things that we did too every Monday night, I think it was, we would go to Toastmasters because we knew we had to get really good about speaking in front of people and look how it carries over, right? So I would just encourage students who are really stressed about grades. Remember, it's not all about that. Take those weekend seminars, get really good at your craft and your technique. I just encourage you, don't get so caught up in your GPA or in your grades that you forget why you're actually in school, which is to be an amazing chiropractor. Question for you: who in practice, if anybody, has ever asked you what your GPA was in school?
Thankfully, no one, and thankfully, no one has asked you that neither because you had a way better GPA. But yeah, just play the game, follow the system, graduate, and that way you could be a killer chiropractor. Any question, concerns, just text me. We're here to collaborate with you as students as well, or you as doctors that are not doing great. We could guide you the correct way if we can. So just text us or shoot us a DM.